The emergency signal pierced through the Galactic Council chambers like a scream in the dark. Ambassador Hannah Kim sat quietly in Earth's delegation seat, her hands folded as she listened to the Valorian representative beg for help. The alien's voice cracked with desperation. His people were dying. 3 colony worlds had already fallen to the Croth Dominion. Millions were dead. The holographic display at the center of the chamber showed the destruction. Cities turned to ash. Orbital stations broken into pieces floating in space. Crowds of refugees running with nowhere to go. Children crying for parents who would never come home. The council members looked away. No one wanted to meet the Valorian's eyes. Counselor Vren, a tall creature with multiple tentacles, finally spoke. His voice was careful and measured. The Croth fleet has over 50 warships. They have 19 massive dreadnoughts. The last peacekeeping force we sent was completely destroyed. Every ship lost. Every soldier killed. We cannot send our people to die in a battle we cannot win. Other council members nodded in agreement. The Croth had ruled the outer regions of space for 200 years through fear and violence. They took what they wanted. They destroyed anyone who resisted. No species in the council wanted to provoke them into a larger war. It was safer to stay quiet. Safer to do nothing. Hannah stood up slowly. Every alien in the massive chamber turned to look at the human. Earth will answer the call for help, she said. Her voice was calm but carried across the silent room. Vren's tentacles twitched. Humanity? Your species joined this council only 40 years ago. You have never fought in a major galactic war. The Croth are not like the small pirates you have encountered. They are ruthless. They are experienced. They have never lost a major battle. We understand who they are, Hannah said. We are still going to help. The Valorian ambassador stared at her with tears in his large eyes. Hope and disbelief mixed on his face. Other council members whispered to each other. Most thought humans were naive. Earth was young compared to civilizations that were thousands of years old. The humans had nice ships and seemed organized, but real combat? Against the Croth? Would be a massacre. The vote was taken. Earth was authorized to respond to the distress call. Most council members believed it was just a symbolic gesture. A young species showing courage before being crushed. At least humanity would be remembered for trying. Hannah left the council building and immediately contacted Earth Command. It is done. Send the fleet. 12,000 kilometers above Earth's surface, Admiral Gina Park stood on the bridge of the USS Indomitable. The massive carrier stretched 3 kilometers from end to end. Its hull was covered in weapons and armor. Fighter bays lined both sides, each holding dozens of small attack craft. Around the Indomitable, the rest of Task Force Terran gathered in perfect formation. Captain Doyen Lee approached with a datapad. Admiral, final numbers are confirmed. 12 carriers, 30 destroyers, 50 frigates and support ships. 47,000 personnel total. Gina looked at the tactical screen showing enemy positions. The Croth fleet in Valorian space had at least 90 warships. They outnumbered humanity's force 2 to 1. They had bigger guns, thicker armor, more experience. Commander Miho Choi spoke from the weapons station. They have twice our firepower, Admiral. The odds are not good. The odds are never good, Gina replied quietly. She pulled up files on Croth battle tactics. But look at their history. They have dominated this region for 2 centuries. They have never faced real resistance. They have never needed to adapt or change their strategies. They expect enemies to run or surrender. They are used to easy victories. Doyen nodded slowly. And we are not like their other enemies. No, Gina agreed. We are not. She thought about Earth's bloody history. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself 6 different times. World wars that killed hundreds of millions. Nuclear weapons that nearly ended all life on the planet. Genetic weapons that created plagues. AI systems that turned against their creators. Each disaster had pushed humanity to the edge of extinction. Each had taught brutal lessons about survival and warfare. The species in the Galactic Council had enjoyed peace for thousands of years. They solved problems through talking and trade agreements. When they did fight, there were rules, limits, honor codes. War for them was like a game with agreed-upon boundaries. Humanity had learned a different kind of war. Total war. War where losing meant your species died. War where there were no rules except survival. War where you used every weapon, every tactic, every advantage because the alternative was extinction. Set course for the Valorian system, Gina commanded. Maximum speed. Yes, Admiral. We will arrive in 72 hours. As the fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, Gina looked at a photo on her command console. Her daughter Nari, 8 years old, smiling at the camera. The girl had asked her once why Earth needed a military if space was peaceful. Gina had told her daughter the truth. Not everyone is peaceful, sweetheart. When peaceful people need help, someone must be willing to protect them. That is what we do. Now, watching the stars blur past, Gina whispered, "Hold on. We are coming." In the Valorian system, Elder Tyvan huddled with frightened children in an underground shelter. The walls shook as Croth bombs fell on the city above. The children asked questions he could not answer. When would the attack stop? Where were their parents? Would they be safe? A messenger ran into the shelter. "Elder, the council sent help. A fleet is coming to save us." "Who?" Tyvan asked with desperate hope. "The Torgathi? The Rena T?" "No, Elder. The humans. Earth is sending their fleet." Tyvan's hope faded. He knew almost nothing about humans except that they were new to the galaxy. Young. Inexperienced. What could they possibly do against the might of the Croft Dominion? How long until they arrive? 48 hours. The shelter shook violently. Part of the ceiling cracked and fell. Children screamed. 48 hours felt like forever. "Tell them to hurry," Tyvan said softly, knowing it would not matter. "Tell them we will remember they tried." In deep space, Admiral Gina activated Protocol Atlas. It was humanity's most aggressive combat doctrine. Once deployed, there would be no hiding what humans were capable of. The galaxy would see everything. She sent one message to the Croth fleet. "You have one chance. Leave the Valorian system now or we will remove you by force. This is your only warning." Warlord Crothus received the message aboard his flagship. He read it and laughed. His officers joined in. Another weak species making empty threats. He ordered his fleet to ignore the humans and continue bombing the Valorian cities below. Crothus had no idea he had just made a fatal mistake. The countdown had begun. Task Force Terran dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Valorian system. Alarms immediately blared across every human ship. The tactical displays lit up with red markers. 92 Croth warships filled the space around the colony worlds. 19 massive dreadnoughts formed the center of their formation, each one larger than 3 human carriers combined. Admiral Gina Park stood perfectly still on the bridge of the Indomitable. She watched the enemy fleet positioning themselves to intercept. They moved slowly, confidently. They had no fear of the human ships approaching them. "They are not even raising full shields," Captain Doyen observed. "They think we are not a real threat." "Good," Gina said quietly. "Let them keep thinking that for a few more minutes." On the surface of Sanctuary below, Elder Tyvan and the refugees watched the sky through cracked windows and damaged view screens. They could see the lights of ships moving in orbit. So many Croth vessels. So few human ones. The elderly Valorian felt his heart sink. The humans had come to help, but they were vastly outnumbered. This would be a short battle. Warlord Crothus sat on his command throne aboard the massive dreadnought Deathbringer. He studied the human fleet on his display screen and smiled. 12 carriers and some escort ships. Pathetic. He had crushed larger forces before breakfast. This would not even be entertaining. He opened a communication channel to the human flagship. His face appeared on every human ship's screen. Crothus was large and covered in dark scales. His eyes glowed red. When he spoke, his voice was deep and mocking. "Unknown human vessels. I am Warlord Crothus of the Croth Dominion. You have entered our territory. You will surrender your ships immediately or be destroyed. You have 30 seconds to comply." Admiral Gina stared at the alien warlord on her screen. She did not blink. She did not look afraid. When she spoke, her voice was cold as ice. "Warlord Crothus. I am Admiral Gina Park of the United Earth Space Force. You are attacking a peaceful species without provocation. You have committed acts of genocide against unarmed civilians. We gave you a chance to withdraw. You ignored our warning. Now we will remove you by force." Crothus laughed. His officers joined in, their alien sounds echoing across the bridge. "You? Remove us? Little human, we have ruled this sector for 200 years. We have destroyed 1,000 fleets. Your tiny ships are nothing. I will use your carrier as decoration on my—" Gina cut the communication. She turned to her weapons officer. "Commander Miho. Light them up." "Yes, Admiral." Firing all weapons. What happened next shocked everyone watching. Every human ship opened fire at the same moment with perfect coordination. Missiles streaked across space by the thousands. Energy beams cut through the darkness. Railguns fired solid projectiles at impossible speeds. The Croth fleet's forward shields flared and buckled under the sudden massive assault. But the humans were not using normal tactics. Their missiles did not fly in straight lines. They danced and weaved, following random patterns that confused Croth targeting computers. Electronic warfare signals jammed enemy communications. Cyber attacks flooded Croth ship systems, causing weapons to misfire and sensors to fail. "They are using quantum encryption," a Croth technical officer shouted. "I cannot block their signals." "Their attack patterns make no sense," another yelled. "The missiles are not following any logical flight path." Warlord Crothus gripped his throne as his ship shook from multiple impacts. "Return fire. Destroy them." The Croth fleet fired back with overwhelming power. Space lit up with explosions. Several human frigates took direct hits. Their shields collapsed. Hull armor melted under energy beams. But the human ships did not retreat. They did not even slow down. "Admiral, the frigate defender has lost main power," Captain Doyen reported. "Tell them to evacuate," Gina ordered. Then she paused. "Wait, what are they doing?" On the tactical display, the crippled frigate defender suddenly accelerated directly toward a Croth dreadnought. Every escape pod launched from its sides as the ship picked up speed. The crew was abandoning the vessel, but the ship itself continued forward on autopilot. "They are ramming," a Croth officer screamed. The frigate defender crashed into the dreadnought's command section at full speed. Its reactor went critical on impact. The explosion tore through both ships. The dreadnought broke into 3 pieces, atmosphere and crew venting into space. Thousands died in seconds. Silence fell across both fleets for a moment. No species in the galaxy fought like this. Sacrificing entire ships as weapons was considered insane. It was wasteful. It was brutal. It was effective. "All ships, attack formation Delta," Gina commanded calmly. "Focus fire on their dreadnoughts. Take them down one at a time." The human carriers launched their fighters. Hundreds of small craft poured out of the launch bays like angry insects. They moved with impossible speed and agility, pulling maneuvers that would kill most alien pilots. Human pilots could withstand gravitational forces that would turn other species into paste. They had trained for this. They had evolved for this. The Croth tried to adapt, but their tactics were 2 centuries old. They expected enemies to fight in organized formations with predictable patterns. The humans fought like chaos itself. They attacked from every angle. They used weapons the Croth had never seen. They sacrificed pieces to win the larger battle. Fighter pilot Lieutenant Sora Bay screamed into her radio as she dodged enemy fire. "Eagle Squadron, follow my lead. We are going for the engine ports." Her squadron of 12 fighters dove toward a Croth dreadnought, weaving between defensive fire. 3 fighters exploded. The others pressed on. They fired missiles directly into the dreadnought's massive engine exhausts. The engines overloaded. Secondary explosions rippled through the entire ship. It went dark and began to drift. "Target destroyed," Sora reported. "Moving to next target." Warlord Crothus watched his fleet fall apart around him. 5 dreadnoughts destroyed. 8 more damaged. Dozens of smaller ships gone. And the humans had only lost a handful of vessels. This was impossible. These were newcomers to the galaxy. Young. Inexperienced. "What kind of species fights like this?" his second officer asked in shock. Crothus had no answer. He had never seen warfare like this. The humans did not follow the rules of civilized combat. They did not show mercy. They did not accept surrender. They simply destroyed everything in their path with cold efficiency. "All ships retreat," Crothus finally ordered. "Fall back to secondary positions." The Croth fleet began to withdraw. The human ships pursued, continuing to fire. Admiral Gina watched them run and felt no satisfaction. Only grim necessity. "Cease fire," she ordered. "Let them go. Our objective is to protect the Valorians, not chase vengeance." The battle had lasted 6 hours. The Croth had lost 11 dreadnoughts and 43 other warships. The humans had lost 4 ships and 2,000 personnel. The impossible had happened. Earth's fleet had defeated the mighty Croth Dominion. On Sanctuary below, Elder Tyvan and the refugees stared at the sky in disbelief. The Croth ships were leaving. The bombardment had stopped. They were saved. But as relief washed over them, a new feeling crept in. Fear. What kind of species could fight so viciously? What kind of warriors destroyed enemies with such ruthless efficiency? The Valorians had been saved by Earth, but now they wondered what they had invited into their system. Admiral Gina received the grateful messages from the Valorian government. Mixed with the thanks were questions, concerns, worry about what humanity truly was. She understood. The galaxy was about to learn a truth that Earth had known for a long time. Sometimes the only thing standing between peace and destruction was someone willing to be more dangerous than the threat itself. The news of the defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time in 200 years, the Kroth Dominion had been beaten in battle. Warlord Krothus had retreated in shame. His fleet had been torn apart by a species that most of the galaxy barely knew existed. In the Kroth Imperial Palace, Emperor Vaxon listened to the battle reports in cold silence. His advisors stood nervously around the throne room, waiting for his reaction. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and dangerous. "How many ships did we lose?" 54 warships, my emperor. Including 11 dreadnoughts. "And the humans?" 4 ships, my lord. Emperor Vaxon's claws dug into the arms of his throne. The metal bent under the pressure. 2 centuries of dominance. 2 centuries of making other species fear the Kroth name. And now some newcomers from a backwater planet had humiliated his forces. "Mobilize the Grand Armada," he ordered. "Every ship. Every soldier. I want that human fleet erased from existence. I want their homeworld to see what happens when someone challenges the Kroth Empire." His advisors bowed deeply. Across Kroth space the call went out. The Grand Armada was being assembled. Over 100 warships began gathering. Dreadnoughts. Battlecruisers. Destroyers. And at the center of the fleet, the massive flagship Annihilator. It was 5 kilometers long and carried a planet-killer weapon that could destroy entire worlds. Meanwhile, at the Galactic Council, an emergency session had been called. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Ambassador Hannah stood at Earth's delegation seat as dozens of alien species debated what to do about humanity. "The human military is far more advanced than we believed," said Counselor Vren. "Their tactics are aggressive. Brutal even. They destroyed Kroth ships with methods we consider barbaric." "They saved the Valorians," Hannah reminded the council. "An entire species was facing extinction. Earth answered when no one else would. And now the Kroth Emperor wants revenge," another counselor argued. "He is mobilizing his entire Grand Armada. This could start a galactic war. Perhaps we should impose sanctions on Earth for their excessive violence." Hannah felt anger rising in her chest. "Excessive violence? We protected innocent civilians from genocide. The Kroth attacked peaceful colonies. We stopped them. And now you want to punish us for succeeding?" The debate continued for hours. Some species supported Earth. Others feared humanity's military capability. A few suggested that humans might become the next threat to galactic peace. The vote for sanctions failed, but barely. The galaxy was divided on what Earth represented. Back in the Valorian system, Admiral Gina received an urgent message from Earth Command. She opened the secure channel and saw Fleet Admiral Quan appear on the screen. He was older, with gray hair and tired eyes. But his voice was firm. "Admiral Park, the Kroth are assembling their Grand Armada. Over 100 ships. They have a planet-killer weapon. Earth Command is sending reinforcements." "How many ships?" Gina asked. "All of them." Gina felt her breath catch. "The entire fleet? That will leave Earth undefended." Admiral Quan nodded slowly. "The Kroth want total war. We will give them total war. But we will also show the galaxy who we truly are. Not conquerors. Protectors. Every ship we have will come to defend the Valorians." The channel closed. Gina stood alone in her ready room, processing the information. Earth was committing everything to this fight. If they lost, humanity would be defenseless. But if they did nothing, the Valorians would be destroyed and Earth would be seen as cowards who abandoned their promises. Over the next week, human ships began arriving in the Valorian system. 120 additional warships jumped into orbit. The Valorians watched in amazement as Earth's entire navy gathered to protect them. No species in galactic history had ever done something like this for another civilization. Captain Doyen approached Admiral Gina on the bridge. "The fleet is assembled. All captains report ready." "But Admiral, if we lose this battle, Earth will have no defenses left." "Then we do not lose," Gina said simply. While the military prepared for war, human engineers and doctors spread across Valorian worlds. They helped repair damaged buildings. They treated wounded civilians. They trained local defense forces in basic protection tactics. Human soldiers worked alongside Valorian builders, sharing meals and stories despite the language barriers. Elder Tyvan watched human medics treating injured children in a hospital. One human doctor, a young woman named Yuna, worked for 16 hours straight without rest. She saved dozens of lives. When Tyvan thanked her, she simply smiled and said it was her duty. A young Valorian girl named Pyrrha approached Admiral Gina during a visit to the refugee center. The child held out a drawing she had made. It showed the Indomitable flying through space with stars around it. In a corner, she had drawn herself and her family safe on the ground below. "You saved my family," Pyrrha said in broken but understandable human language. "Thank you." Gina took the drawing carefully. She felt emotion rising in her throat but kept her voice steady. "We will keep you safe. I promise." She took the drawing back to her ship and placed it on her command deck where she could see it. It reminded her what this battle was truly about. Not glory. Not conquest. Protection of the innocent. Captain Doyen noticed the drawing. "The crew is calling her our good luck charm." "Let us hope we do not need luck," Gina replied. "We will need skill, determination, and the willingness to do whatever it takes." On the third day, long-range sensors detected the Kroth Grand Armada approaching. Over 100 warships traveling in formation. At the center was the massive Annihilator, its planet-killer weapon visible even from thousands of kilometers away. Gina called all ship captains to a video conference. Faces appeared on her screen from across the fleet. Some were young. Some were veterans. All looked determined. "You all know what we face," she began. "The Kroth outnumber us. They have bigger ships and more firepower. They have a weapon that can destroy entire planets. The odds of survival are not good." She paused and looked at each face on the screen. "But we are not here because the odds are good. We are here because people need us. Because we made a promise. Because we are the only ones standing between innocent civilians and those who would destroy them. Earth has given us a mission," she continued. "Protect the Valorians at all costs. Not because we gain anything from it. Not because they can repay us. But because it is the right thing to do. Because this is who humanity chose to become after nearly destroying ourselves. We chose to be protectors." Silence filled the channel. Then Captain Salmon of the destroyer Valiant spoke. "We stand with you, Admiral. To the end." Other captains echoed the sentiment. "We stand with you. For Earth and for those who cannot protect themselves. We will not fail." Gina felt pride swell in her chest. "Then we fight together. And we win together." All ships prepare for battle. The Kroth arrive in 36 hours. As the conference ended, Gina looked at the drawing from little Pyrrha. She traced the outline of her ship with one finger. The child believed humans were heroes. Saviors. She had drawn them as protectors flying among the stars. "We will not let you down," Gina whispered. "Whatever it costs." Across the fleet, 47,000 human personnel prepared for the battle of their lives. They checked weapons. They reviewed tactics. They wrote final messages to loved ones back on Earth just in case. But not one of them questioned why they were there. Not one suggested retreat. On Sanctuary below, Elder Tyvan gathered the refugees. "The humans are staying to protect us. They are outnumbered. They may not survive. But they refuse to abandon us." "Why?" someone asked. "Why would they sacrifice themselves for us? We barely know each other." Tyvan thought about Dr. Yuna working without rest. About the soldiers helping rebuild homes. About Admiral Gina accepting a child's drawing with gentle hands. About an entire species committing every ship they had to protect strangers. "Because," he said slowly, "they believe every life matters. Even ours." In the darkness of space, the Kroth Grand Armada approached like a storm of death. Emperor Vaxon had given clear orders. Destroy the human fleet. Then destroy the Valorians as a lesson to anyone who dared resist Kroth power. The countdown to battle had begun. The Kroth Grand Armada emerged from faster-than-light travel like a wall of metal and death. 106 warships filled the space around Valorian Prime. At the center, the massive flagship Annihilator dwarfed every other vessel. Its planet-killer weapon began charging with an ominous red glow that painted the darkness. Admiral Gina Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the enemy fleet approach. Her tactical officer called out numbers that should have terrified her. 106 enemy ships confirmed. 28 dreadnoughts. The Annihilator is charging its main weapon. Estimated time to full charge, 40 minutes. 40 minutes, Gina repeated quietly. Then we have 39 minutes to stop them. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, Protocol Sparta is now active. Every weapon. Every fighter. Everything we have. Protect the Valorians at all costs. Protocol Sparta was Earth's most desperate battle plan. It had been created after studying humanity's own worst wars. It meant total commitment. No retreat. No surrender. Fight until victory or death. Every human captain knew what it meant when those orders came through. Captain Salmon on the destroyer Valiant responded first. Valiant ready. We will not fail. Across the fleet, other captains echoed the same message. They were ready. They were committed. They would not run. Emperor Vaxon watched from his command throne aboard a heavy cruiser at the rear of the formation. He smiled as he saw the human fleet. Still only about 130 ships against his armada. The humans had brought reinforcements, but they were still outnumbered. They would be crushed. Begin the attack, he ordered. But leave the humans alive long enough to watch us destroy the Valorian homeworld. I want them to see their failure before they die. The Kroth fleet opened fire first. Thousands of energy beams and missiles filled space. The human fleet scattered into smaller groups, moving in patterns that seemed random but were carefully calculated. They did not meet the enemy head-on. They flowed around the massive Kroth formation like water, striking weak points and disappearing before the enemy could respond effectively. Launch all fighters, Gina commanded. Target the Annihilator. We stop that weapon or everyone dies. Fighter bays across the human fleet opened. Over 2,000 small attack craft poured out like a swarm. They raced toward the massive flagship, dodging defensive fire. Hundreds were destroyed in the first wave. But hundreds more kept coming. Lieutenant Sora Bay led her squadron through the chaos. Enemy fire lit up her screens. Her wingman exploded to her left. Another pilot screamed over the radio before his signal went dead. But Sora kept flying. She had a mission. Eagle Squadron, focus on the weapon port, she shouted. We need to damage the charging system. Her remaining fighters dove toward the massive red glow of the planet killer weapon. They fired everything they had. Missiles impacted the weapon housing. Energy beams cut into exposed systems. The charging process slowed but did not stop. It is still charging, her weapons officer reported. We need more firepower. Admiral Gina saw the fighters struggling on her tactical display. The planet killer would fire in 25 minutes. She made a decision that would haunt her forever. Destroyers Valiant, Defiant, and Resolute. Position yourselves between the Annihilator and Valorian Prime. If that weapon fires, you will absorb the shot. Silence filled the communication channel. Then Captain Salmon's voice came through, calm and steady. Understood, Admiral. Valiant moving into position. The three destroyers broke formation and moved toward the massive flagship. Each destroyer carried a crew of 800 personnel. 2,400 people volunteering to become a shield for an entire planet of strangers. On the Valiant's bridge, Captain Salmon looked at her crew. Many were young. Some were crying. But none of them complained. They had all joined the military knowing this day might come. Power all shields to maximum, Salmon ordered. Redirect everything to forward deflectors. Engineering, I need every bit of power you can give me. The chief engineer's voice was shaky but determined. You will have it, Captain. We will hold as long as possible. The three destroyers positioned themselves directly in the path between the Annihilator's weapon and the planet below. On Valorian Prime, millions of civilians watched the sky. They saw three human ships hovering above their world like guardian angels. Elder Tyvan stood with young Pyrrha and her family in the capital city. The child pointed at the ships. Are they protecting us? Yes, Tyvan whispered. They are giving their lives for ours. The battle raged around them. Human carriers launched wave after wave of fighters. Destroyers and frigates engaged Kroth dreadnoughts in close combat. The space around Valorian Prime became a graveyard of burning ships and floating debris. Commander Miho reported casualties with a grim voice. The carrier Resolute is destroyed. Frigates Dawn and Horizon are gone. We have lost 8,000 personnel. Gina closed her eyes briefly. 8,000 lives. 8,000 families who would receive terrible news. But she could not stop. Could not hesitate. The mission was all that mattered. Keep firing, she ordered. Target their dreadnoughts. We need to reduce their numbers. The human ships fought with a ferocity that shocked the Kroth. When ammunition ran low, human vessels rammed enemy ships. When engines failed, crews overloaded reactors and turned their ships into massive bombs. The destroyer Thermopylae, crippled and drifting, was deliberately crashed into a Kroth battlecruiser by its surviving crew. Both ships exploded in a flash of white light. Emperor Vaxon watched in disbelief as his fleet took heavy casualties. The humans were like nothing he had ever seen. They did not fight for territory or resources. They fought with the desperate fury of parents protecting children. They fought like every single life on that planet below mattered more than their own. The Annihilator is at 90% charge, his weapons officer reported. 10 more minutes until we can fire. Good, Vaxon growled. Let the humans watch. Let them see that their sacrifice means nothing. On the bridge of the Valiant, alarms screamed as sensors detected the weapon reaching critical charge. Captain Salmon looked at her crew one final time. Young faces. Brave faces. She had led them well. She was proud of every single one of them. It has been an honor serving with you all, she said quietly. Tell my family I love them. Tell Earth that we held the line. The Annihilator's planet killer weapon fired. A beam of pure red energy lanced across space toward Valorian Prime. It was powerful enough to crack a planet's crust, to boil oceans, to end all life. The three destroyers stood in its path. Their shields flared bright blue as they absorbed the impossible energy. For 7 seconds they held. 7 seconds of humanity's best engineering and bravest souls standing between destruction and innocent life. Then the shields failed. The beam tore through the Valiant first, vaporizing it instantly. The Defiant and Resolute exploded a heartbeat later. 2,400 people died in seconds. But the beam had been weakened. Scattered. When it reached Valorian Prime's atmosphere, it dissipated harmlessly into space. The planet was saved. On the surface, Elder Tyvan fell to his knees. Young Pyrrha cried for the brave humans who had died protecting her world. Millions of Valorians wept for the strangers who had given everything for them. Admiral Gina gripped the edge of her command console. Her knuckles turned white. 2,400 of her people gone. She wanted to scream. To cry. But the battle was not over. She opened a channel to the entire Kroth fleet. Her voice was hard as steel. Warlord Krothus. Emperor Vaxon. You just watched 2,400 humans die to save people they had never met. That is who we are. That is what we do. We stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. Now I am giving you one final chance. Retreat now or we will destroy every single ship in your fleet. Emperor Vaxon laughed. You are outnumbered. You are losing. Your people died for nothing. They died for everything, Gina corrected him. And now you will understand what happens when you threaten those under our protection. She gave the order. Every human ship activated weapons systems they had kept hidden. Experimental railguns that could punch through any armor. Quantum missiles that could not be blocked. Electronic warfare systems that completely shut down cross-ship computers. The human fleet attacked with controlled fury. They were no longer holding back. The final wave of human attacks broke through the Kroth formation like a hammer through glass. Admiral Gina had unleashed every weapon system Earth possessed. Quantum missiles phased through shields and detonated inside enemy ships. Railgun projectiles moving at impossible speeds tore through dreadnought armor. Electronic warfare programs shut down entire vessels, leaving them drifting helplessly in space. The Kroth Grand Armada, which had terrorized the galaxy for 2 centuries, fell apart. Dreadnoughts exploded. Cruisers tried to retreat but were cut down by precise human fire. The flagship Annihilator, its planet-killer weapon now useless, took concentrated fire from 6 human carriers. Its shields collapsed. Its hull split open. Atmosphere and crew vented into the void. Emperor Vaxon watched from his command cruiser as his unstoppable fleet died around him. 70 ships destroyed. His most powerful weapon neutralized. And the humans showed no signs of stopping. They fought with cold efficiency, destroying every ship that did not immediately surrender. All ships retreat. Vaxon finally screamed. Full withdrawal. Abandon the system. The surviving Kroth vessels turned and fled. Human fighters pursued them to the edge of the system, destroying stragglers. When the last enemy ship jumped away, silence fell across the battlefield. The space around Valorian Prime was filled with debris and floating wreckage. Human and Kroth ships alike lay broken and burning. Admiral Gina stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and looked at the casualty reports. 47 ships lost. 23,000 human personnel dead. The numbers felt impossible. Too high. Too terrible. These were not just statistics. They were people. Daughters and sons. Parents and children. Friends and loved ones. Captain Doyen approached quietly. Admiral, the Valorian government is requesting communication. They want to thank you personally. Gina nodded slowly. She accepted the transmission. Elder Tyvan appeared on her screen. The old Valorian had tears running down his face. Admiral Park, my people live because of your sacrifice. 23,000 humans died protecting strangers. We can never repay this debt. We will remember this forever. Remember by living well, Gina said softly. Honor our dead by building a peaceful future. That is all we ask. The transmission ended. Gina felt exhausted. She had not slept in 3 days. Her body ached. Her heart felt heavy with loss. But the mission was complete. The Valorians were safe. Earth had kept its promise. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council convened again. Every species in the galaxy had heard about the Battle of Valorian Prime. Some called it the greatest military victory in modern history. Others called it a terrifying display of human capability. The galaxy could no longer ignore or underestimate Earth. Ambassador Hannah stood before the council. She wore black in mourning for the fallen. The chamber was silent as she began to speak. You have all seen what happened at Valorian Prime. You have seen Earth's military strength. You have seen humans fight with ruthless efficiency. And I know many of you are afraid. You wonder if humanity will become the next threat to galactic peace. She paused and looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. Let me tell you what you should fear. Fear our determination. Fear our refusal to abandon those who need help. Fear that we will always stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. But do not fear that we will conquer you. Hannah gestured to the holographic display showing images from Valorian worlds. Human engineers rebuilding homes. Human doctors treating the wounded. Human soldiers teaching defense tactics while playing with Valorian children during breaks. Look closely at what we did. We did not conquer the Valorians. We saved them. We did not demand payment or territory. We helped them rebuild. Every human who died made that choice voluntarily. They were soldiers who understood that protecting others was worth dying for. Counselor Vren spoke carefully. But Ambassador Hannah, your species is capable of terrible violence. Your weapons are beyond what most civilizations possess. What guarantee do we have that you will not use this power for conquest? Hannah met his eyes steadily. You have no guarantee except our word and our actions. Yes, we are capable of terrible violence. We learned that from nearly destroying ourselves 6 times. We mastered warfare because we had to survive our own worst impulses. But we chose a different path. We chose to become guardians instead of conquerors. She pulled up images of Earth's bloody history. World wars. Nuclear explosions. Cities in ruins. This is what we did to ourselves. This is what we learned from. Every weapon we carry, every tactic we know, came from fighting each other. We unified because we finally understood that strength without compassion is just another path to extinction. Another counselor asked, what does Earth want from the galaxy? Partnership, Hannah replied. Not dominance. We want to trade, learn, and grow alongside other species. But we also promise this. If any species calls for help against aggression, Earth will answer. We will defend the peaceful. We will stand against tyrants. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is our purpose. That is who we have chosen to become. The council debated for hours. Finally, they voted to establish the Terran Defense Initiative. It would be a volunteer coalition where Earth provided military protection to any species that requested help. In return, those species would contribute resources and knowledge. It was not an empire. It was an alliance based on mutual defense and cooperation. 6 months passed. On Valorian Prime, a massive memorial was unveiled in the capital city. It showed statues of human soldiers standing alongside Valorian civilians. Children played around the base. Flowers covered the ground. Carved into the stone were the names of all 23,000 humans who had died protecting a world that was not their own. Elder Tyven stood at the memorial with young Pyrrha, who was now learning human language in school. She read the inscription aloud in carefully practiced words. They came from a distant world not because they had to, but because they could not stand idle while others suffered. Admiral Gina Park, now promoted to Fleet Commander of the Terran Defense Initiative, attended the dedication ceremony. She stood before the wall of names and touched several that she recognized. Captain Salmon of the Valiant, Lieutenant Sora Bay, Commander Taeyong, people she had known, people she had commanded, people who had trusted her with their lives. A young ensign named Jehun approached her nervously. Commander, was it worth it? So many died. Sometimes I wonder if the cost was too high. Gina thought about the question carefully. She looked at the Valorian families walking peacefully through the memorial garden. She saw children laughing and playing without fear. She saw a civilization that would continue to exist because humans had refused to let them die. Every single life we saved was worth it, she said finally. That is not just our mission. That is who we are. We do not measure worth by cost. We measure it by the principle that every innocent life deserves protection. Jehun nodded slowly, understanding growing in his eyes. Across the galaxy, other species watched Earth carefully. The Croth Dominion never attacked another world. Other aggressive empires reconsidered their expansion plans. Pirates avoided systems under Terran protection. The galaxy had learned a powerful lesson. Humanity might be lethal, but they were also the greatest hope for peace. In deep space, a distress signal was detected from an unexplored sector. A new species unknown to the Council was broadcasting for help. Their world was under attack. They were dying. They hoped anyone would hear them. The signal reached Earth Command. Fleet Commander Gina Park reviewed the information and looked at her assembled fleet. Ships that had been rebuilt after the Battle of Valorian Prime. New vessels fresh from construction yards. Crews eager to serve. Ready to protect. She thought of little Pyrrha's drawing still framed in her office. She thought of the 23,000 names carved in stone. She thought of humanity's long journey from self-destruction to protectors of the innocent. Send the coordinates, Gina ordered. Humanity answers the call. Her fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, heading toward a species they had never met. Going to protect people they did not know. Because that was what Earth did. That was what Earth had chosen to become. In the darkness of space, humanity's most lethal fleet carried hope to those who needed it most. And across the galaxy, species learned that the most dangerous warriors could also be the most compassionate guardians. The age of human protection had begun.